Good evening, everybody. Tonight is our very last class of the semester, which is kind of exciting. And we do have some work left to do. We are still working on Chapter 13. And if I didn't mention this in the previous video, I'm pretty sure I did, but just in case. You're also assigned to do Chapter 14. And if you guys haven't noticed, Chapter 14 is a 2-point assignment. And if you guys remember back in the syllabus, there's a get out of homework free coupon worth 2 points. So if you want a convenient chapter to apply it to, Chapter 14 might be the one. However, the exercises in these database chapters I think are very useful because these are the type of things you do when you write real applications out in the field. Most often when you're writing a .NET application that pushes to the web, it's not unusual for it to tie into a database. So knowing how to do this stuff I think is really helpful. So this is an important skill for sure. If you guys remember, we managed to finish the first try it out in Chapter 13 where we successfully connected with the database. We dropped in that grid view and automatically connected and pulled stuff in. And we were able to do a lot of the basic CRUD operations. And CRUD, of course, is an acronym that stands for create, retrieve, update, and destroy or delete. But anyhow, that was an important first step, getting all that stuff to work. So I'm hoping at this point most of you have either SQL Server or SQL Server Express installed on your machines, or you followed the same technique that I did, which is just to connect to the SharePoint server that we have using the credentials that I provided for you. And if you have any issues with that, of course, you can reach out to me and I will help you. Since this is the last night of class, everything that is due for the semester is due by midnight tonight. So hopefully you don't have too much stuff left. I have 48 hours within which to post grades following the end of class. Now technically that would be 7:30 Sunday evening. Doesn't mean that I'm going to wait till then to do it. I really don't know how my weekend's going to play out, but I'm just telling you guys this, and I'm recording it into the video so that you know that really your stuff needs to be in tonight at midnight, last day of class. My grading of it will probably happen over the weekend. At which exact point, I don't know, but I have to get grades in certainly before we come back to campus on Monday morning. All right, folks, let's dig into the material. I'm going to pull this up to the second screen here like I normally do. And we are going to pick up here. We're at the top of 463 here, and we're moving into the second try it out exercise in Chapter 13. Now, some of this you might notice we're really kind of playing with the tool at this point. So there's going to be really a pretty simple series of steps here, and it should go pretty quick. So what they want us to do is open up the genres page, which I already have open up on the screen, and they want us to be in design view, which I already am. That's where I left off last time. So when I opened up the project again, it took me right back here. All right, so the other thing that we need to do, which is step number 2 here, it says drag and drop a details view control from the data category of the toolbox. And just in case you don't have your toolbox up, remember, go to the view menu and enable it, and then find the data section and bring it in. Now, let's make sure that we drop this into the right spot. And it says we should drag and drop it immediately below the grid view. So the way that I read that is like down here, but it's really kind of hard to tell from this standpoint, because when you look at the code view on this, you notice that the tools that we're dropping in as controls have a whole bunch of stuff that goes with them. And I don't know if you guys bothered to look at this stuff, since we worked last, but it's pretty interesting when you look at it and you start to realize that stuff that you learned in your database class, if you've taken it, really comes into play. And it becomes pretty important because it allows you really to very quickly understand that you're working with SQL commands here. SQL commands tend to be fairly universal across all database systems. And if they're not, they're real similar to this depending on the database that you're working on. I will also tell you that as we move into the next chapter, they start to introduce a different technology to you which is new to the Microsoft frameworks, called Link, which is LINQ. And basically, it's a hybridized version of a query language that ultimately compiles to a query, to SQL, but it uses a different syntax that interfaces really nicely with the programming languages inside of Visual Studio, most notably C# and Visual Basic. And Microsoft has been pushing it for a long time, and I think it's finally catching on, but it offers basically what we call an abstraction layer in between what we're doing with regular SQL and what we're doing in the coding language. The advantage of that is you're allowed to use some of the names in your code directly in the statements that you're building for the database, and it leverages the tools, I think, in a lot easier way than writing SQL statements, frankly. It takes a little bit of getting used to if you're comfortable with SQL, but you know, if you have the database concepts firmly in mind, it's really not that big a deal. So it's always good to look behind the scenes here. But what I am looking for is a place to stick my code. So you guys see what I'm doing here? I'm making a little space. Will that change my design view? It did? Oh yeah, you can do it in your design. So I can like just type enter here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just creating a space so that I can enter something in, right? In the HTML view or the code view, typing blank lines, just like regular HTML, doesn't do anything, right? I would actually have to add paragraphs and whatnot. So I just came here, and if you jump back to your source, of course, and take a look at what you did, it recognizes it and shows that you put in a line break. Okay, whatever. Just so I have like a spot where I can actually drag and drop it to. It just makes sense. So the name of the control again is called Details View, so just drag and drop it in. All right, and you can see the Smart Task panel pops up automatically. All right, and the thing that they give as a tip in the book is they say if you have trouble dropping it in below it, you can actually drop it directly on top of this portion of it, just as an option. Okay, open the Smart Task panel, which we already have open, and then hook up the control to the existing SQL data source 1 by selecting that from the drop-down box. Now mine's called SQL data source 2 because I obviously screwed up something at some point and had to do it again. So whatever number yours is, choose that one. How do you know which one it is? Well, look right above where you are. Whatever it says there is what you want. All right. The other thing that we want to turn on here, it says turn on enable inserting item. So notice this time we're not adding a whole bunch of different stuff, just that. All right. Next thing that we want to do is they want us to open up the properties grid. And if you guys notice on my screen, there's no properties grid open right now, right? Because I had been fiddling with it. And one of the shortcuts they recommend is you can actually press F4 while you're still attached to the tool, and the properties grid comes up. Now, since I had closed mine and made it disappear, it's now kind of just popping up in the middle of my window. And I'm going to actually redock it. And I don't know if you guys have played with these tools at all, like moving the panels around much, but you should experiment with it, because if you notice, if you want to put it in a certain spot, you notice how it kind of like automatically, like as I go over the icons, kind of finds these things, but you can also take it, over to the side here. And I'm trying to get it redocked, and really what I want is it to be in that side panel. Don't want it there at the bottom like it normally is, right? There you go. Keep in mind all these little panels on the side, multi-screen users, you can drag these and move them to any screen you want, and that's what the pros do, right? Code in one window, browser in the other, tools in the other, or whatever works for you. Seems a little odd at first, but really it's a great way to work. All right, so continuing step 5, it says locate the default mode property in the behavior category, if you're set up that way. I'm set up alphabetically myself. And set the default mode to insert. So now, even though we said enable insert, we still have to come here and tweak this control. Isn't that interesting? Because one of the controls, or one of the options here is edit, so we could hypothetically edit the content. not be able to edit it, or in this case, insert, which actually will tie into a database action, so we actually will be creating new content through this interface. Then they want us to jump over to the source code view, and they want us to take a look at the code. And I'm taking a look at mine, and I'm noticing it does not look a whole lot like what they have. Some of it does, right? Did I miss a box? What did I do wrong? Well, they have a whole lot more. Yeah, I'm missing some stuff. They have a whole lot more stuff here than I do. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of things to try to figure out what's going on. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my Server Explorer, and I'm going to see if my database connection is still there. It is, right? So that shouldn't be the problem. So what I seem to be missing are the fields that go with. So if you look at the so that's because I didn't attach to it correctly. Now it should have worked anyhow, but let's try that again. So what I'm going to do, there's no harm done here, no harm, no foul, right? I can Control Z my way out of this problem, right? So first thing is undoes the default mode, Control Z again, probably cancel the data source, and do it again. Now, was it maybe a mistake that I added the space in there? Yeah, there's no real correlation there, right? Just because I didn't do exactly what the book said. So I'm going to repeat these steps one more time. So I'm going to bring in the details view. I'm going to choose the data source. Do you notice the fields, though? Now, they're not telling us to do this in the book, and this is maybe a little bit disconcerting. So I'm going to actually try the same steps again. And I figure I should be okay. That's my thinking, right? And then they want us to change those couple of settings. Insert. Anything else they wanted us to change, or was that it? Let's go look at the source code. Still have the same problem. Now you guys did it a different way. Maybe I should try to follow what the book did. So I'm Control-Zing my way out one more time. And then I'm going to take that details view, and I'm just going to drop it right there where they suggested, and see if that makes a choice. Do I still have to choose the data source? I sure do. However, I have this thought here that maybe I should look at the fields and see what fields are available. And am I actually really connecting to anything? That's kind of my concern here. Enable inserting. Let's look at the data source. See the connection string. I have the fields that are the same as what are listed, correct? Now these instructions are not in the book clearly, right? So we're just letting it kind of do its automatic thing. Seem to be pulling in all the right information, right? So I did my test query, and I'm just going to click Finish. Now what does it say? Refresh fields and keys for grid view 1. Would you like to regenerate the grid view column fields and data keys using the selected data source schema? Warning, this will delete all existing column fields. Well, that's kind of scary. What should I say? No. Why not just say yes? You know, we have this like magic key combination, Control Z.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So I said yes twice. Did I screw things up, folks? No, what the people in the video aren't hearing is I just like nodded my head and said very quietly, probably. So, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm control-zing my way out one more time. All right, so I'm going back to my design view, and I'm actually kind of like freaking out here a little bit, right? Because it seems like I like kind of screwed it up. So what I'm thinking is, why don't I try running this really quick and see what comes up? Can I get the old stuff to come up okay? Maybe I should have did that before. All right, in my second window here, it popped up, and it looks like everything's still running fine, right? All the stuff is still there. Let's go ahead and close that. All right, let's repeat the steps. Details view. Yeah, I actually did try that. Right onto the SQL data source, like the book says. You still have to choose your data source, right? Enable inserting. I guess my concern is mostly that I'm not getting the same code that the book is showing. But you guys are. Why? You guys must be more special than me. Yep, I got to do the properties. I got to switch to insert. Data sources. Let's take a look at the code. Yeah, see, I'm really reluctant to do that because that's exactly what my point is here. Because we are working with technology that has evolved from the printing of our book. Now, if I look, are you guys noticing this? If I scroll down, some of this stuff is moved. I'm tempted at this point to just continue with the instructions, even if my code doesn't look like that. So I'm going to just go ahead and save the changes. And then I'm going to go ahead and run it in the browser with a Control F5 and see what happens. And I am getting on the screen exactly what the book is showing. How do you like that? So now they want us to insert a new genre. And honestly, I need to see how many we got here because, okay, its ID is 12. So I don't know, should we put in 13? And what should I put in? Black metal? All right, let's be more serious here. Country? Think of an outrageous music form. And I'm not really sure what to put in for sort order, but I don't know, let's put in like 25, something like that. And let's type insert. Now I should be able to go to the second page here. Oh, country was already a thing. Oops. Did I do this once before? Let me try that again. Let me put in an ID of 15, a name of, let's invent a genre, country metal, and a sort order of 28. It doesn't. So maybe you guys did it wrong and I did it right.
Well, I mean,
that is an excellent, is it?
I don't know, I didn't look at the script that created all that, but I'm guessing that it probably is.
My first one seemed to insert twice too. Yeah, there's some issues going on here. I didn't put in an ID this time. There's certainly some issues here. Okay, I would say that if you read through the stuff here, you're going to see that there's some stuff that needs to be adjusted. All right, so what, for whatever it is what it is right now. Let's move on to the next, try it out.
Oh wait, you know what, now I'm trying to run that project and it's saying that it's expecting an error for the person.
Yeah. Now, I didn't put one in and it still did it. So, whatever music, it auto-incremented. If I put in an ID and don't put in a sort order, that's not good. Probably needs a number. But it did have a glitch because the first entry I made listed country twice. Then I typed in country metal, and then when I did gypsy jazz, it did country metal twice. There's some sort of a issue going on here. Is that our primary concern right now? We're going to say, heck no. Okay? So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go ahead and delete one of my entries here, because I can, and delete the other entry. Why? Because I can. And, let's delete whatever, and we'll leave the other ones alone. All right, I'm now moving on to page number 467, and you'll see my screen probably changed abruptly for you, but we were trying to solve some problems here in class, so we were looking at the code view here, just to make sure everything was all right. All right, so now we're going to create a new web form. And so I'm going to go back to the Solution Explorer here on the sidebar. We want it to go into the management folder. And we are going to base this on our master page. And so it's going to be, and you can see I'm in Visual Basic mode. Don't want to be there. We want to be in the right mode. So we want to be in C# mode. And the name of this should be Reviews. And we do want to select the master page, and it's going to go off that management master. You guys should be able to anticipate that at this point. All right. We want to make sure that we change the title here. The title should be Planet Rocks Management Reviews. Go ahead and save that right away. And this one, step number 2 here, says add a link to this page in the master page for the management section. So we actually want to switch over to the management page, and you'll see that in this section here where we're basically creating our navigation, they want us to add a link to the reviews page. And now, of course, you can do that a couple of different ways, right? You could create the LI and then just drag and drop reviews right in there, just like that. Notice how it forms a different link, though, than the one the book suggests. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, so I would challenge you, and if we had a whole lot of time here, what's the difference between the two styles of links? Right, well, this is a relative path to the location of the file. The book recommends the tilde, and the tilde is relative to the root of the project. It really is the better choice here. And really, they just want us to call this reviews, or manage reviews. So let's go ahead and tweak that. So maybe that wasn't the best drag and drop choice, but not too far off. If I was smart, I would have just deleted part of management and it would have been there. But Hindsight's 20/20. So that was step number 2. They want us now to save this and then go back to the reviews page, and they want you in design view, and then they want the toolbox open again. So if you've closed it like I did, please bring it back up, and they want a tool from the standard section, and what we want is a drop-down list. So we're going to drop that in here. We want to enable post back. So remember what that means with the drop-down list is as soon as you make the selection in the list, it automatically posts to the server and runs the code. Otherwise, you would have to hit a submit button first. That's what that button does if you're not aware. All right, and so we did that part. And then click the Edit Items link. And then we're going to go ahead and insert an item. So we're going to add. And we're going to name this. It says the text should be set to make a selection. Which would be a good thing to do. And then they want you to clear this, which is inserted automatically. You guys okay? All right. Moving on to step number 4. All right, and I suppose we should probably say okay to that. They don't say that in the instructions, so, right? So you're always kind of, well, how am I going to get back to the Smart Task panel if I don't, right? All right, so in step number 4, it says, once you return from that editor, choose the data source and select New Data Source from the drop-down list. Because that's your only choice, right? All right, and then you get this little wizard that pops up, and this is where we're going to start to make some choices. And, you know, for whatever it's worth, you guys should take a look at the things that are available to you here, because you can really, you know, connect up to a bunch of different types of resources. And some of these I would call, you know, databases or data abstraction layers. So certainly the database, the entity, the link queue, the XML files all can be in that category. The object and the sitemap are a little bit more fuzzy, but you know, it's just kind of interesting to know that those options are out there. And then in this case, we're going to leave database clicked, and then we're going to leave the ID set to SQL Data Source 1 and click OK. Now, I'm a little concerned because I already know that my application, it was SQL Data Source 2 that I was working with, right? So I have a little bit of a concern as to what I should put in here. I'm just being real frank here. But they did want us to choose something new. I'm just going to go ahead and click OK with the understanding that I might have an issue. Now, what they're trying to point out to me here in the next step, it says, in the dialog box that follows, you're going to choose the connection string that hypothetically was already created in earlier steps. And if you actually look at the drop-down here, you'll notice I didn't name mine Planet Rocks. Mine's actually called whatever my goofy database is called, which is like 5 A's. You know, or A. Yeah, it was one of those. So if you follow the instructions and use South SQL Server, yours will be named differently. But you know, the whole point is it doesn't really make a difference as long as you can make that connection to the database. If you're curious what the connection string looks like, you can actually click this little box here, and it'll actually show you the code that sits underneath, which I don't want to do since that's going on YouTube and my password just appeared in plain text. Yeah, like who's going to watch the video in that much detail? Okay, so if the database is hacked, we know why. And it's not really a hack at that point, right? They just have access. because here's the key to the car, don't take it. All right. All right, I'm sorry. I thought that was kind of funny. Next. All right, so here's where we want to follow the steps to make sure that we're doing the stuff the way they want. And really what these boxes do, folks, is they're kind of like a graphical way to actually build queries so that you don't have to sit there in the code and write it, right? And in a lot of other languages that you've probably learned, like Java and PHP and whatever languages you've used, back end or front end or whatever, usually you have to create all this stuff manually. You have to create the connection strings. You have to know what the right syntax is and all that. The beauty here is once you've established that connection in the Server Explorer and you've done the connection string before, you just pull it back in, and then you start choosing fields. And then what happens at the bottom of the screen there, you see that it automatically builds the query for you, which is just a beautiful thing. All right, so now they're saying verify the radio button for specify columns from a table or view is selected, which it is by default. Also ensure that genre is selected. Notice that review now also appears. And then select the ID and name columns. So ID and name, but notice not sort order. All right. Then the next step here is they want you to go ahead and click the order by button. And these terms should all sound familiar to you if you've done your database stuff, right? So we're going to add order by, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to choose sort order, which you would kind of guess since we omitted it from the other one. And we'll leave it ascending. Go ahead and click OK. And then if you've done all the work correctly, you'll see down below here in the statement that's been built, it's using some generics based on our field names, but now we have a select ID and name from genre, order by sort order, which is pretty slick. So it just built your SQL statement for you with very little effort from you. Right? Not that that's a hard one to build, but it's neat because you can actually get some pretty sophisticated things going on here and not have to type a stitch of code. All right, go ahead and click Next. And then if you want, you could always do a test query just to make sure it's connecting. And then notice that the ID numbers don't necessarily match up with the sort order. But if you were to look at the sort order, I'm guessing Punk is first. All right, and then if you're all good there, go ahead and click Finish. And then you're here at this box here. And what they want you to do at this next step is a couple of selections. It says you return to the data source configuration screen, and now you can set up a field that is displayed in the drop-down list for the genres in the field that serves as an underlying value in the list. All right, so we're sticking with our data source, and I just want to make sure that we do this for both of these correctly. Choose name as the field to display here, and then leave the second one set to ID. So if you've got it done correctly, it should look like what you're seeing on my screen right now, hopefully. Hopefully you guys are all nodding at this point. That's good. Okay, go ahead and click OK, like you have a choice. Right, what else are you going to say? Cancel after all that? All right, and then moving on to step number 10. So it says with the drop-down list control still selected, press F4 to set up the properties or get into the properties. My properties are already open here. And we want to find the property called append data bound items, which right now is set to false but we do want to change it to true. So you can think about what that might mean. Append data-bound item. So if the data is connected to the database source, and we're adding something, appending is adding something to it. So we're really kind of getting this capability to do that. The next thing that we want to do is switch over to the source code, and we're looking at the list item here, and the way that they're putting it in the book, it says switch to markup view, and if the static list item that instructs your users to select an item does not have a value attribute, add it manually. So where that would be is right here. So, and of course it doesn't, so here we are adding it manually like this. Right. They do want you to leave it as an empty set of quotes. And hopefully your code looks like what's in the book in step number 10. Right. Go ahead and do Control S to save your work, save everything that you've been futzing with. And go ahead and let's bring up the page in the browser. Do a Control F5 here. And mine, for whatever reason, is just dropping onto my second screen, probably because that's where my browser is. And then you can see that we do have the drop-down list. And I assume that they want us to go ahead and use it, right? But notice that what happens here is the stuff that's in the drop-down list is now shown in the sort order that's listed with the sort order value. And that's basically what we accomplished. Did we create this list? No. You know what a pain it would be to create a list like this manually? That you can do a click, 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 tap into a data source, and use a couple of tools, and then basically auto-generate it. This is why we use these tools, folks. And we're really just, are you realizing now that we're at the last day of class that we're just kind of scratching the surface of the capabilities here? And that's why we have a .NET 2 class now. But the fun part of this is that once you start to see these pieces fit together like this, all of a sudden the light should go off in your head with all the different things you could put into a database or a flat file of some sort. It doesn't have to be a database, right? And then you can just quickly pull in the data and generate these objects really quickly and have them do some pretty miraculous things. Right. Now you can go ahead and you can choose something, and of course nothing's going to happen, because guess why? We didn't write any code, as the book tells you, to make anything happen. That comes next. But we're a little more than halfway through the class right now, so let's take a break for 5 minutes and we'll come back and continue. All right, we're now moving on, and we are on page 470. We're going to do the try it out called applying the filter. All right, so at this point we're going to be working on the reviews ASPX page. I'm going to go ahead and close my output window there, get that out of the way. And they want us to be in design view, so go ahead and switch to design view. And the instruction says drag a grid view from the data category, so we want to collapse our toolbox here, and put it on top of the existing SQL data source control. So grab that grid view and put it right on top of that data source control. All right. So for data, we want to choose new data source. We want to make sure we have database selected. Go ahead, click OK. Then we want to choose our connection string. Now, if you're some people are getting issues here with their connection strings, you can always take a quick look at it. And one of the issues that people were having is that the password part of it wasn't showing. So just make sure that your password is there. obviously, because otherwise it won't connect. Go ahead, click Next. And now we're going to do a little bit more SQL statement tweaking through a graphical environment here. They want us to switch over to the review table this time, as you might anticipate. And then make sure that asterisk is checked so that the whole thing pulls in. So it just pulls in everything. And he makes an interesting note here. It says, in the preceding chapter, I recommended not to use select star, but here he's saying it's okay. And he says, later in this chapter, you see how to fix this. So he's doing it for a reason. That's kind of the mindset here. Now, in this case, we do want to click the Where button. And then we want to start choosing some stuff here. All right, so we do need to choose a column, and the column we want to choose is genre ID. Want to select the operator to be set to equal. The source will be control. The control ID is going to be drop-down list 1. Now, if you are like me, I have 2 of them listed. Okay. Now I'm going to see if he's got any little tidbits on that. And it says, for some reason, each of your controls may show up twice. Okay, which I think is wonderful, because I, like him, probably would not be able to explain to you why it's happening. So it says, it doesn't matter which drop-down list 1 options you choose. Okay, I'm just going to choose the first one. But I'm glad he's getting the same issue, right? Right, and that's like one of those things where some programmers would go down the rabbit hole and go on Stack Overflow and research it, trying to get rid of one, only to find that then they break it, So sometimes it's better just to leave it alone. Yeah. That's a good mindset, like the problem-solving mindset, but sometimes you're also better off, like, it's like, the car's running, don't mess with it, right? So, all right, so in general, what we're trying to do here is get our screen to look like what's at the top of page 471, and mine seems to be there. All right, so next thing you want to do is go ahead and click the Add button, and what the Add button does is it takes all the little selections that you just made and converts it to a where clause that then is going to get added to our SQL statement. So once you have it like that, then go ahead and click OK. And then notice at the bottom here, it's a select star from review where genre ID equals some thing with an @ sign in it. All right, but that is exactly what you want to have. All right, so once you've done that, let's go ahead and click Next in this box. And then, of course, they ask you to test the query, so you should go ahead and do that. And then what happens here is what they want you to do is come up with a way of entering a value. So what they're doing is they're actually probing the data source and realizing what kind of data it is. And that's why you see the parameters genre ID. What kind of data is that? It's an int32, and it's a database object. So what they want you to do is enter a number that you know exists in that database. And honestly, I don't remember all the ID numbers, but I think like 10 is one of them, right? That's a pretty good guess. And then go ahead and say OK, and then hopefully it comes up with that. If that didn't bring up something, try a different number, okay? I don't remember the numbers that I put in there, so I'm going to type in 1, and okay, that worked. So you see that it went in there and it found some information that was related to it, something that actually had a value. And if you weren't sure, what you would literally have to do is you'd have to go into your Server Explorer, bring up the database, open the table, look in the table, and find it, and type in the value. So I just guessed. I wasn't going to get frustrated with it. But if I wasn't able to pull something up after like 3 or 4 tries, that's what I would do. So and to do that, you come over here, Server Explorer, navigate through the tables, bring it up, and take a look. All right. So if that is okay, go ahead and click Finish. All right. All right, and then it warns here, it says if you get a dialog box about refreshing parameters, click Yes to have the code and markup view updated for you. I didn't get that, but you guys might. Okay, nobody did? Okay, that's fine. All right, go ahead, save all your changes, folks. So do a Control S here, and go ahead and open up this page in the browser. And of course, second screen once again. Right, so now they want you to go ahead and select something in the drop-down list. Death Metal Flamenco seems to be like one. And keep selecting until you get something that actually pulls back results. Because you notice that I clicked on, what was it, Death Metal Flamenco or whatever it was, that didn't have any reviews, but the one that I just chose, which was Techno, did, and it pulled down all the reviews up on the screen. And then notice that, really kind of what the point here is this is a management tool to allow a manager of the website to basically click the Authorized button and see if this review is allowed to be on the site. Which is kind of interesting, right? If all sites were like that. Can you imagine if they had somebody at Facebook like authorizing your posts and your comments? I have one of those. It's called a wife. That's a bad joke. Okay. Right? No, the kids are smart. They're not on Facebook. I don't know if you guys are like that, but my kids are like, I don't want to be on Facebook. You guys are on Facebook. Right? What do the kids use? They use like Snapchat where it disappears right away. That way your parents can't hold you to your bad behavior, I guess. All right. We have much more to do in this chapter, and I'm kind of getting to the point where I know you guys can kind of figure out most of this on your own. And I think that maybe we'll try one more of these exercises, and I'm going to kind of cut the strings and let you guys fly on your own. So let's move on to the next one. We're at the bottom of page 473, going into 474. All right. So top of 474, step number 1. Let's go ahead and close the browser here. We're going back to the reviews page here, and what they want us to do is open the Smart Task panel for the SQL Data Source 2 control and design view and configure the data source. Now, I'm very pensive about this because I don't know if you guys remember when I started, mine was called SQL Data Source 2, and the second one I added was SQL Data Source 1, and I have a mental note of that, right? And also notice that on my screen that the 1 comes after the 2. Right. So if you guys screwed up and followed my steps exactly and screwed up all the same ways I did, it might be the same way. So I'm thinking that I'm selecting the second one, not the first one. I don't care if it says 1 instead of 2. You guys catching me? Brian?
3.
You got 3.
2 didn't have anything in it, so I just deleted it.
There you go.
1 and 3.
There you go. So you got 1 and 3. Welcome to the club. It's like I didn't do the directions perfectly, so now I have to deal with my screw-ups from the past approach, which is a valuable skill, folks. Okay, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go to this and hit the little task panel here, and we're going to configure data source, and we're going to skip the connection string because that's already set up. And then it says complete the screen as shown. So we are going to choose certain columns. We're working from the review table. And then we're going to uncheck the star, and we are going to select ID, title, authorized, and create date time. All right. And then the other thing that they want us to do is also include the same where clause that we created last time. So if you guys don't remember what those selections were, you can scroll back up and find that. But really what we're trying to do is make our screen look like this one. So if you guys remember that step, you can try to do it without referring back, because it really wasn't that hard. You guys remember what we chose here? Right? Genre ID, what was the source? Control, what was the control ID? One of those, right? And then we click the add button and say OK. And now what I'm going to do is, here, I'll bring my book back over and we'll say, does that look the same? Looks the same to me. Well, you can click on that box again. Yeah, it was genre ID equals source was control. The parameter properties were drop down list, and then I hit add. You want me to come over there and take a look? All right, next thing they want us to do here is they actually want us to click the advanced button. And then notice the little checkbox that you get here. This is kind of cool. I always like this. Where it says generate, insert, update, and delete statements. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. And it says you can leave the optimistic concurrency checkbox cleared, so don't check that one. Go ahead and click OK. Go ahead and then click Next, and then Finish. Now, of course, you could always run a query here, but they're not really asking us to, so click Finish. Now here, he's got a little note in here that says, when asked whether you want to refresh the fields and keys for the grid view, click yes. Did you guys, anybody get a dialog asking for that? Okay. I didn't either, so. All right. Now, he's got a little box here at the bottom of 474. I'm just going to pull it back over, and it says, common mistakes. If both options in the advanced SQL generation options dialog box are grayed out, make sure your table in the database using SQL Server Management Studio, make sure that you made an ID column of the review table and the primary key in the identity column is explained in the preceding chapter. Did I do that? I don't think I got that far in that chapter, did I? So one thing that you guys might run into here is that issue. So, it is making an assumption that you did the stuff in chapter 12 to make this work, which actually kind of makes chapter 12 not really a extra credit chapter then, does it? Right? So that's why you may as well just do it. Horse apiece, I suppose, right? Now, I probably, frankly, if I was really worried about how this is going to turn out, like I was going to keep doing subsequent steps, I'd go in there and fix it right now. But since we're basically out of time, I'm skipping that step. But if it keeps this from working, then I'll have to go in there and make it work. So now we're on page 475, right at the top, step number 2. And it says, at this stage, Visual Studio has created columns for the for the grid view and markup view. To remove those items and define your own, open the Smart Task panel for the grid view, which is this, and click Edit Columns, right there. And then it brings up this box here that maybe you saw before, maybe not. And it says if the selected fields list contains items, use the delete button with a big X to clear the list first. So is that the case? I'm going to redo that step because it seemed like it. Okay, so you guys see what I did there is I cleared that list one by one. All right, in the available fields list, select Authorized. Right, and they want you to make sure that you're in the area for bound fields. So I don't know if you guys are noticing this, but it's a separate category, and that's not where I was. So they want me to select Authorized here. Once again, under bound field. So that wasn't where I was to begin with. And then click the Add button to move it over and add it to the selected fields. All right, it says repeat this step for the Create Date Time field, which is right here. And go ahead and click Add. And then hopefully you look like what is in step number 3, which is figure 1312 in the book. Hopefully. All right. In the available fields at the top of the screen, select Hyperlink Field. And I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but I'm not seeing that. Yeah, you're going to have to scroll down here. So I'm finding Hyperlink Field. It's not part of a subcategory. It's a top-level item. Go ahead and click Add. And then they want you to take that hyperlink field and then use this up arrow here once it's highlighted to move it up in the order of selected fields. Right, and then what they want you to do then is with that item selected, make sure it's selected first. You'll bring up the properties here, and now you're going to start to tweak a couple of properties. And let's find them one by one. So the first one is header text, which is right here, and we're going to call that title, because that's what the book tells us to do. Then we're looking for data navigate URL fields. Data navigate URL fields, and there we're going to put in ID, and it's actually lowercase d. Data navigate URL format string, which is the bottom one. I am copying the code that's in the book. I don't want to type it. And notice what this is actually helping us to build our URL with kind of like a conditional component in it, which is kind of a neat thing. And then the data text field should also be set to title. All right, moving on to step number 5. It says in the list with the available fields, click Command Field, which is right here. And then click the Add button. And then it says set the header text to delete. and the show delete button, wherever that is it true? All right, step number 6, next page. So we're on 476. Click the authorized column in the selected fields, and then click the blue convert this field into a template field link. And you see that that's right down here at the bottom. The authorized came from the section up here at the top, bound field. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it did it. Then it says click the create date time column and set its data format string property to what the book has, which is curly bracket 0:G. Oh, got to be curly bracket, not paren. And it says click OK to apply the changes to the source code. Now they want you to switch over to markup view and remove the edit item template for the authorized field. So that is right here. You see this? Right. And the point that he's making in the book, he says this, the grid view is going to display reviews in read-only mode, so you don't need this template, basically. So we're just deleting it. All right, step number 10 says modify the label control in the item template of the authorized field so it ends up looking like what's in the book. And right now I'm just kind of doing a side-by-side comparison with what's on my other screen here. So my temptation is to actually grab the code from the book and just paste it in. Seems a little bit easier than trying to tweak what's there. And you notice how I'm getting this red underline here, folks, and the error message says the name get Boolean text does not exist in the current context, meaning it's not recognizing that code. And when it's inside the ASP tags like this, really what this is doing, you notice how the ASP tag has a pound sign right after it at the beginning? What would that hint to you? Well, backside code is what it is, and really what it's referring to is that this is C# code. So what we actually need to do is actually create this method in the code behind page. That's what's missing here. So in step 11, they want you to press F7, which I'm going to do, to go to code behind, and then drop in some code from step number 11 using the correct backend language. All right, and from the way I read this, we're not worried about putting it in the page load command. It's a standalone thing. And now, of course, if you were to go back to your reviews page, that red underline is gone because now it does have something that exists that it's pointing to. All right, save all your changes. So go through, or just hit save all if that works better for you. And then let's bring it up in the browser once again, assuming it's opening up the right page. All right, and we want you to choose a genre. Oh, Mine's not choosing anything. Now, the reason I think mine's not working and yours might, if you did that primary key stuff that they were talking about, it probably will work. Right? And I told you already, I'm not spending the time to go backwards right now. But then the point is, it should bring up something that looks like this when you choose a category, and then you'll notice that the authorized column is showing. So all that work, that's what we did it for. But you notice that some of this stuff is stuff that's being pulled in automatically, and some of it is stuff that we're kind of helping to generate. So when we were putting in title, we were actually putting in the text in the title column. That's what we were creating. All right, so that is as far as we're going to make it, folks. We are basically out of time. It's been a fun semester. Complete the rest on your own. It's not too hard to do, and it's a great learning experience. And hopefully see you guys next semester or in the summer. And hopefully you take .NET 2, where we do some even more sophisticated things. In fact, significantly more sophisticated. So I hope to see you guys all there. It's been a great semester, and have a good summer.